The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of Mbeki Industries as Ayanda Mthembu adjusted her simple blouse and smoothed her worn handbag. She had arrived early for what she believed was a job interview, her heart racing with hope and determination. The receptionist had directed her to the executive floor, where she now stood outside the imposing glass doors. Inside the boardroom, Nomsa Khumalo, the ruthless chief operations officer, was conducting interviews with her usual iron fist. Known throughout Johannesburg's business circles as the Iron Mistress, Nomsa had clawed her way to the top through sheer ambition and had little patience for what she perceived as weakness. When Ayanda entered, Nomsa barely glanced up from her papers. The young woman's modest appearance immediately triggered Nomsa's prejudices. Here stood another desperate job seeker, she assumed, probably willing to accept any position just to survive. "Sit," Nomsa commanded coldly, her voice dripping with disdain. "I don't have all day for charity cases." Ayanda's eyes flashed with hurt, but she maintained her composure. "I'm here about the marketing position." "Marketing?" Nomsa laughed harshly. "Look at yourself. We have standards here. This isn't some township charity organization." She stood, her designer heels clicking against the floor as she circled Ayanda like a predator. "Perhaps the cleaning staff has openings. That seems more suitable for someone of your circumstances." The words cut deep, but what happened next shattered Ayanda's dignity completely. Nomsa pressed a button, calling security. "Escort this woman out," she announced loudly, ensuring half the office could hear. "And make sure she doesn't loiter around pretending to belong here." As the security guards approached, Ayanda rose with whatever dignity she could muster. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the rage and humiliation burning in her chest. The whispers and stares of office workers followed her as she was escorted through the corridors like a common criminal. "Ma'am, please come with us," the security guard said gently, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Ayanda walked with her head held high, even as tears threatened to spill. She had endured poverty, loss, and countless rejections, but never had she been humiliated so publicly, so cruelly. As the elevator doors closed, she made a silent vow that somehow, someday, justice would prevail. Neither she nor Nomsa could have imagined that this moment would set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of Mbeki Industries. Sade stood in his corner office, 50 floors above the Johannesburg skyline, his mind heavy with the weight of running one of Africa's largest conglomerates. At 32, he had transformed his late father's modest construction company into an empire spanning technology, real estate, and manufacturing. But today, success felt hollow. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife. "Interview didn't go well. We'll explain later. Love you." Neo frowned. Ayanda had been so excited about this opportunity, and he had secretly pulled strings to ensure she got the interview. Not because she needed his help, she was brilliant in her own right, but because he wanted her to have every chance to shine. Their secret marriage of 6 months had been her idea. She insisted on making her own way in the world without the Sade name opening doors. "Sir?" His assistant, Thandai, knocked gently. "Ms. Khumalo wants to see you about today's interviews." "Send her in." Nomsa entered with her usual confidence, her report in hand. "Neo, I've completed the marketing interviews. Honestly, the quality of candidates these days is appalling. I had to have security remove one particularly inappropriate applicant." Neo looked up sharply. "Remove? Some desperate woman who clearly didn't belong here. Poorly dressed, probably uneducated. I saved us the embarrassment of even conducting a proper interview." A cold dread settled in Neo's stomach. "What was her name?" "I didn't bother asking. These people need to understand their place." "Her name, Nomsa." His voice carried a dangerous edge that made her falter. I think it was Ayanda something. Mthembu?" "But Neo, you don't understand." The file in Neo's hand crumpled as his grip tightened. Ayanda Mthembu. His wife. The woman he loved more than life itself had been humiliated, degraded, and thrown out like garbage by his own COO. Get out. His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the force of thunder. Neo, I don't understand why you're. Get out. The roar echoed through the office, and Nomsa scrambled backward, her face pale with shock. As she fled, Neo grabbed his keys, his mind racing with fury and anguish. How could he have let this happen? How could he have failed to protect the woman he cherished most? The irony was crushing. In trying to give Ayanda the independence she craved, he had inadvertently subjected her to the worst kind of humiliation. The drive home felt eternal, each red light a torture as he imagined his wife's pain. This wasn't just about a job interview gone wrong, this was about dignity, respect, and love. And someone was going to pay. Ayanda sat in their modest apartment in Melville, still wearing the clothes from her humiliating morning. She had chosen this simple flat over Neo's mansion, insisting they build their life together gradually, authentically. Now, staring at her reflection, she wondered if she had been naive to think she could exist in his world without his protection. When Neo burst through the door, his usually composed demeanor shattered, she knew he had learned the truth. "My love," he whispered, dropping to his knees before her chair. "I am so sorry. I should have been there. I should have protected you." Ayanda's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. The tears came in waves as Neo held her, his own eyes wet with rage and sorrow. "She made me feel so small, Neo. So worthless. In front of everyone. Never again," he promised, his voice thick with emotion. "I swear to you, never again." The next morning, Mbeki Industries buzzed with unusual tension. Word had spread that the CEO had called an emergency board meeting, and his demeanor was unlike anything the staff had ever witnessed. Gone was his usual calm leadership, in its place stood a man whose quiet fury was palpable. Nomsa entered the boardroom confident in her position, surrounded by the other executives she had cultivated as allies. She had spent the evening convincing herself that Neo's reaction was an overreach, that he would see reason. "Ladies and gentlemen," Neo began, his voice cutting through the room's tension like a blade. "I want to tell you about a woman named Ayanda Mthembu." Nomsa's blood began to chill. She has a master's degree in marketing from Wits University. She graduated summa cum laude. She speaks 5 languages fluently. She has consulted for 3 of our biggest competitors and increased their market share significantly. Neo's eyes swept the room, landing finally on Nomsa. "She is also my wife." The room erupted in shocked murmurs, but Neo raised his hand for silence. "Yesterday, this brilliant, accomplished woman was humiliated, degraded, and ejected from our building like a criminal. Not because she lacked qualifications. Not because she was unsuitable. But because someone in this room decided that her worth could be measured by her clothes rather than her character." Nomsa's face had gone ashen. Around the table, board members were shifting uncomfortably, some shooting her accusatory glances. "Nomsa," Neo's voice was deadly quiet. "You have 15 minutes to clear out your office. Security will escort you out, just as you had my wife escorted yesterday. Your severance package has been revoked due to breach of company values." "Neo, please," Nomsa stood, her hands shaking. "I didn't know. If I had known." "That's exactly the problem," he cut her off. "Your respect was conditional on status rather than humanity. That is not who we are as a company." 3 months later, Ayanda stood in the same boardroom where she had once been humiliated, but everything had changed. As the new chief marketing officer of Mbeki Industries, she had transformed not just the company's approach to marketing, but its entire corporate culture. Her first initiative had been revolutionary, the Hidden Potential program, which recruited talent from unconventional backgrounds, focusing on ability rather than appearance or connections. The program had already identified dozens of brilliant minds who had been overlooked by traditional hiring practices. The quarterly reports show a 23% increase in brand engagement since Ayanda joined us, Thandai announced to the packed boardroom. The same executives who had once whispered about the inappropriate applicant now hung on every word of her presentations. Neo watched his wife with undisguised pride and love. She had insisted on earning her position through merit, spending weeks proving herself before he would even consider promoting her. The board had initially been skeptical, wondering if nepotism was at play, but Ayanda's results spoke louder than any doubts. Furthermore, Ayanda continued, her voice strong and confident, our community outreach has improved our reputation significantly. When we invest in people rather than just profit, everyone wins. After the meeting, as the boardroom emptied, Neo and Ayanda found themselves alone where their journey had begun in chaos. Do you ever regret it? Neo asked, pulling her close. The secrecy, the hardship, everything that led to that day? Ayanda looked around the room thoughtfully, then smiled with the radiance that had first captured his heart. Never. That humiliation taught me something valuable, my worth isn't determined by anyone else's perception. And it led us here, to this moment, to this truth. She gestured toward the window, where the Johannesburg skyline stretched endlessly. Besides, someone wise once told me that diamonds are formed under pressure. Neo laughed, remembering his own words from their first date. And some storms clear the air for brighter days. As they left the building hand in hand, employees nodded respectfully to their CEO and his remarkable wife. The story of Ayanda's transformation from inappropriate applicant to chief marketing officer had become legend within the company, a reminder that greatness often comes in unexpected packages. Nomsa, meanwhile, had struggled to find work after word of her action spread through Johannesburg's tight-knit business community. The woman who had once prided herself on reading people had failed to see what mattered most: character, intelligence, and heart. In the end, love had not only conquered all, it had transformed everything it touched, turning a moment of cruelty into a catalyst for positive change that would ripple through their lives and the lives of countless others for years to come. Their secret was no longer hidden, but their love remained the most precious truth of all.